That spark of innovation, it's just waiting for the perfect combination of tools and talent to bring it to life. Welcome to Pitch, Build, Scale. I'm your host, Chris Fanchi, a recovering startup founder, veteran SaaS marketer, turned dev tech enthusiast and growth specialist. Each episode, we connect with the builders, the visionaries, and the problem solvers who are redefining what's possible with today's technology and pioneering the websites, apps, and software products of tomorrow. These are the conversations that transform how we build, how we sell, and how we scale technology businesses in a world where the tech evolves by the minute. Ready to stay ahead of the curve? This is Pitch, Build, Scale. Hello and welcome to today's episode. We have a very exciting guest. For those of you just joining the podcast, we are Big North Marketing and specialize in helping dev shops and SaaS companies scale their revenue. If you want to learn how to take your SaaS or dev business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs. We really are excited to have today's guest. Martika Jones is the founder and CEO of Boop, an AI-driven lead nurturing platform helping sales teams and event organizers transform connections into conversations. She's also a champion for underrepresented founders in Tampa through her work at Boop NO. Martika, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
So you've had such a unique story from orchestra to entrepreneurship. Can you walk us through that transition?
Yes. So my background is in orchestral music. I played the trombone since I was 12 years old, and I didn't realize that was going to take me into a full-blown career. I can remember at a very young age wanting to be a musician like my family. I come from a musical background. So my grandmother was a pianist in the church. My mom played saxophone and she was also a vocalist. And I was like, I want to play saxophone like my mom. And when we got the test results back, because I actually test to see what types of instruments you'd probably be good at, they said you could either play clarinet or trombone. And my mother said, you're not bringing that squeaky clarinet into my house. Don't even think about it. Said, well, Mom, what's a trombone? And she told me that I would find out on the first day of school. But ever since, I fell in love. It helped me get to places that I never thought I'd be. I got to travel the world. I study under world-renowned musicians. Instructor was Colin Williams, who's the associate principal of the New York Philharmonic. I really got to get that Juilliard experience during my undergrad in New Jersey, but without having to actually go to Juilliard and pay that awful tuition. So I would say it's a win-win all around. But as the years went on and after I got my undergrad at Montclair, I realized very quickly that trying to constantly have gigs and work was not a very sustainable solution because you're just fighting so many people for the same position. And there's not a whole lot of orchestra jobs out there. And in my particular instrument, there's only 3 in an orchestra. So this odds aren't very good. And so I realized very quickly that I needed to find something else, something that I was already good at that I didn't realize that I was, which is just running a business, being an entrepreneur. So when we moved from New Jersey to Florida, we found a lot of opportunity here. My husband and I, when I say we, my husband and I moved down here to Florida back in 2018. We were working some 9 to 5s, but realized very quickly that we wanted something of our own. I don't know what happens when you come down to Tampa, but apparently you get the startup bug. Apparently that happens a lot here. And I needed to figure out what I was going to do. So I looked for entrepreneurship programs and I found one at the University of Tampa, and they had a Master's of Science in Entrepreneurship. I went through that program. It took me from ideation to implementation on how to build and run a business. Built my first startup. It failed gloriously. And then went on to the next startup. And also in the midst of that, we built our branding consultancy firm out of that. And then after making some money with that, we were able to bootstrap our tech company, Boop. So here we are, and the rest was history.
All right, so let's dive into Boop then. Tell us a little bit about Boop, what it is, what the concept was, what made you decide to pursue this one?
Yes, so Boop came about interestingly. So during the failure of our first startup, we ended up just not having co-founder alignment. It tends to happen. It's a very common thing. And while that was unfortunate, that was a hard decision to make to dissolve that first company. There was a silver lining. we were already ideating Boop because for the branding firm and for that company, there was something I found out that I was really good at. I'm really good at getting people hyped up, selling the selling the idea, right? Selling the services and capturing email leads and things like that. But I absolutely sucked at following up. And I realized very quickly that I wasn't alone. As some of the stats say, like nearly 50% of sales professionals don't follow up, which is awful because, we're in sales and we need to. We wanted to build something for ourselves. So we started building Boop. Before we even realized it was Boop, we're like, hey, let's just figure out how to capture leads easily. And then this was also probably a year after COVID, right? So we're still kind of in that pandemic era. Networking has changed a lot. It was digital, and we kind of were riding that digital business card wave. Well, as we landed our first client, which was a Century 21 brokerage with over 400 agents, we realized that capturing leads, that's nice. Those digital business cards, those are nice, but the issue is they still get lost. Those contacts get lost in the abyss of your phone and you don't remember who you connected with. So we took those next few years to really figure out this secret sauce. This, how can we improve the follow-up success rate? And that's ultimately how the current version of Boop was born. And we got to debut that at Synapse Summit last year, which is Tampa's largest tech and innovation conference. And everybody, all the attendees were just booping at the summit and got to experience what real-time follow-ups looks like. And so that's how we got our start.
So when did you start working on Boop originally?
We started working on Boop back in 2021. And from there, it was just a lot of iteration, a lot of customer feedback, and just getting it to this V2 stage that we have now, because it was on this little prototype, wasn't quite doing what we needed it to do. We needed to get a little more funding under our belt because everything was bootstrapped. So, when it comes to bootstrap companies, things can move very slowly. But ultimately, in the long run, we still get to keep control and do what we need to do. So we finally secured enough funding where we could build our own platform, our own code base, and really just have full control so that we could start building and being more innovative the way that we want it to. And ultimately, that led us to our debut in 2020. And then we got to do it again here in 2025.
So what is it like building a tech startup in an era where technology is changing so rapidly? Obviously, 2021 is just before the debut of ChatGPT and the
Mhm.
mainstreaming, I would say, of AI. So how was that transition for you guys, and how did that impact the development process?
Oh wow. I mean, there were a couple of feelings there where when like ChatGPT came out and then now just even this year we're talking about agentic AIs and agents and things like that. And it's been a whirlwind. I feel like I have whiplash. I don't know about you, but just trying to
Absolutely.
keep up. I would say it's one of those things where it's like hindsight is 2020. We're thinking, wow, if we had this, we didn't have this. If we had this now or back then, and we wouldn't have to spend all these thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And so it's one, getting over that hurdle of, hey, look, this is where we were in this era, and here we are now. But I can definitely say that I'm glad that we didn't have it before because it taught us a lot of things. It taught us about communicating with devs, being realistic with timelines, things like that. But now that we do have AI and then all of these platforms like Cursor and Windsurf and things like that, it just helps with the development process. We don't have to wait so long to get ideas out of our heads, right? And I think that's the biggest thing as creatives. My husband and I are both creatives. We don't have to take a bajillion years in Figma or Adobe to try to get thoughts out and then translate to our devs. Now we can actually go in, describe the things, actually test the functionality, and that not only saves us time and the devs' times, but it saves us money as well. So I would say it's a game changer when it comes to prioritizing things, figuring out, hey, what are we good at? What can we do to take the legwork off of you? And then being able to transfer that over and just making the process more efficient, and you can get to market faster.
So you mentioned Cursor and Windsurf and those kinds of tools. Have you played around with all of the different options out there? And how much of that code that's being developed by AI is finding its way into your final product? Or is it all entirely just for testing and trying things out?
So yeah, I've tested out a lot of things, and a lot of my technology mentors are giving me certain things. They're like, oh my gosh, you need to check this out, check this out. I'm like, wait, I just got done trying to figure this one out. But I would say that a lot of it is for testing purposes. But I would say that some of that code, once it's been reviewed with my developers, things like that, because we also want to make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to do, staying compliant, making sure the security is there, because that's the number one priority for us. But we start with testing. If some of the functionalities and things look good and we can implement it into what we already have, then it gets passed through and we're good to go. But I would say it does play a lot in our current development cycle right now, especially as we're trying to find new ways to innovate and we want to go ahead and validate and invalidate certain theories. We can do that now just here in the laptop. I can do it probably while we're over here. I'm like, hey, look at this. And then now I can be like, is this going to work? Is this realistic? And what does this look like? Because we do a lot of the front end, some high level functionality, but of course we want to make sure that our developers are able to do all the back end things that they need when it comes to that. So I would say ideation, and then some of the code makes it, but not 100%.
Do you ever put some of that stuff out there in front of a group of clients or people that you trust to test it out?
Yes, definitely a very small focus group, because the ultimate goal is, while since a lot of our platform is done and built out and we're looking at different additions and innovations, we're keeping a lot of that like real tight close to the vest right now. So it's really just technology mentors, advisors, things like that that are looking at it. And then as we get it to a good place, then we'll bring on certain pilot clients that we're looking at to really validate and see if this is something that we could, bring to market on a larger scale.
Yeah, that brings up a separate question that's kind of in that same vein is right now it's so easy to quickly ideate and test things, but where do you draw the line between, well, this would be nice to have, but it's just not worth adding to our product versus, well, let's give it a try and see what happens.
Yes, so a line definitely has to be drawn because we've seen it personally, and we see it all over like X and LinkedIn. It's very easy to get sucked down that rabbit hole of just like, oh my gosh, the the world is our oyster. We can do whatever we want. And the issue is it kind of brings a lot of the doers back into the dreaming stage, which is not a bad thing. You have to be a dreamer, but you also have to be a doer. And the issue is if I'm constantly, testing out new things, I'm like, oh, well, if I could do this, then I could do that. And then rather than actually executing the thing that, what was on the roadmap, right? And I would say the biggest thing too is customer discovery. Now that we have these tools and we can do this faster than ever, better than ever. Now is the time to really go back to your customers and be like, hey, this thing that I was thinking of that I thought would take 2 years to get to, but I could probably get to it within a week now. Is this something that's truly important to you? Is this something that you really need? Or are you just creating another nice to have feature in your platform that probably nobody's going to use?
So how did you make those decisions in the days before launch when you're still building out the original version of the product and you don't necessarily have a bunch of clients that you can test with? How did you find trusted voices to get that kind of feedback as you're developing?
Yeah, so I went back to, my alma mater, the University of Tampa. One of my first advisors came out of that program. So just going to them, they have the center up here, so you can actually just go there anytime you want. They love alumni, they love their students, and anybody that is just in that entrepreneurial community. And I could just go back there, test and iterate. Of course, I have founder friends. We're always testing each other's products. It's always good to have that tribe, right? And I felt like that was one of the things that I did right coming out of entrepreneurship program is surrounding myself with other like-minded folks that have the same drive, they're doing the same things so that we can be there to be those beta testers and things like that. Cause that's actually quite hard to get. Most people don't realize, as we're currently doing our mobile app beta, trying to find 100 people, other than like putting it out on a website and be like, hey, beta test my stuff. But like even locally, just trying to get it out there and gather those folks is quite a task.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. As the world of sales tech is exploding, there's a ton of solutions out there. What separates you guys? What separates Boop from the other solutions out there, including something like just building and I say just building an agentic automation or sequence? on your own?
Yeah, what makes us different is we really focus on that crucial 5 to 72 hours after you just made a warm connection. Because a lot of people are really good at capturing leads, like I was back in the day, right? But they don't really nurture them the way that they need to be. And what's special about Boop is after you connect with somebody, we do that within 5 minute touch point. We do that 72-hour reminder that encourages both of you to continue conversation. But even beyond that, when you capture a lead via our platform in your dashboard for every single lead, you have a contextually accurate email for that person. So now you know even more about them than probably what you learned in those first 5 minutes of that interaction. We've gone and done the heavy lifting. We created a more empathetic email. We can determine personality type. So it's ultimately automated empathy, if you will.
How do you go about doing that kind of thing? How do you make it feel more human?
Well, the goal for us was to, rather than having these generic emails that you see that are completely automated, they probably are AI generated, but the whole deal is like, hey, I do this. Like, I know about the person who's connecting with this person, and I'm just going to throw out all of our value propositions at them, but it feels more like they're talking at them than talking with them. Our goal is to know about you as the networker, but then also knowing about the person that you connected with so that we can create a more accurate and contextual email based on what you do and based on what they do. So it can sound more collaborative, right? And if we can determine if that person is more, short, dominant, to the point, then the email can be pointed a little more in that direction. But if they're more collaborative, conscientious, then you can also mimic the same way because we already know about sales. It's all about mirroring and treating the person that they want to be treated like, right? So we take a lot of that behavioral analysis into play and, psychology because that's ultimately what it is. Right. And so why don't we implement that in our sales? There's so many sales books out there. There's so many things out there, but our biggest thing is to revolutionize how we communicate with each other and to make sure that technology actually helps you become more human.
So you've mentioned events a couple of times, and that as being kind of a new niche that you're going after. How did you make that discovery, and how have you pivoted to look more into that direction?
So when we launched our V2 platform, and it was all about the real time, the 5 minute follow ups, and all of the leads, or not leads, but the emails being generated for the attendees. We had this big idea 6 months prior to Synapse, and I'm so thankful for them because they've really provided us a platform to kind of debut in real time and have, I guess you could say, one big giant market research for this. And I probably wouldn't recommend to everybody to put it all out there on the line, but this is what founders do. They risk it all, right? But I could tell you that that was probably the first nerve-wracking thing, with founders like, this is my baby and I'm about to show it to the world and people are gonna call my baby ugly or something and it's just gonna be crazy. But I can tell you that we were up all the way into the middle of the night, you know, coding, debugging, all of us in a room just like, okay, we got to get this ready to go because we have to be there in 4 hours. So literally no sleep. We got there, everybody had their boot bands, everybody was at registration, and it was amazing. It was probably the most amazing experience I could see. I got to see people in real time using the platform. We could see the data on our end, on the back end in real time, and just getting to watch the behavior and watch things play out. And of course, we were there for tech support if there was anything that was going on. But yeah, ultimately, the sentiment was great, and we realized that hey, we've done something here. We've done something interesting, and the event found it so valuable that we did it again. But even from there, we went to San Diego, powered a women's venture summit. We powered 4 more events this year so far, and planning to have many, many more throughout the year. And it was just kind of like a accidental niche that actually works out because not only does the event get data and metrics on how they're providing, what are they providing, and how are they providing it for their attendees? Are they providing a networking experience? Who connected with whom? How impactful are we as an organization? So they get those metrics, but the attendees actually get to still build those relationships beyond that event. And if they like us enough and they want to continue, then they can utilize us for their organization. So it's also a really cool acquisition play.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So you're seeing some leads coming in from attendees of the events, not just the events themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. So is which direction do you expect to direct your efforts in the future? Is it gonna be going after more events to try to get into more events? Is it going after the individuals or the other target clients?
Yeah, so where we see ourselves is twofold. We really enjoy the event space just to kind of show what we can do, but ultimately we are looking at B2B enterprises that, have the sales teams, the recruitment teams, the marketing teams that really need to increase their ROI and not spend so much time on finding lost business cards or figuring out how to manage all of their lead and contact data. So we're always looking for enterprise clients when it comes to our platform. But events are just it's a nice, fun, interactive way to be introduced to our product.
Yeah. So how does Boop go about enriching the lead data? Where does enrichment data come from? How many interactions do you guys need to be able to understand the personality type of a contact?
So right now we're using a proprietary engine to really go out and find information and utilize that to determine personality type. As you know, there's different types. There's like professional personality, then there's like Facebook. Right. So we also want to make sure we use discernment when it comes to uh, how you should talk to somebody for sure, because their LinkedIn may not be like their Facebook, right? So taking that into consideration, and then the other thing is leveraging understanding if that's a as a business owner, what their profile is kind of like, are they salespeople too? If you're a salesperson and sell to another salesperson, maybe that should sound more collaborative, things like that, just to kind of have those nuances in place when we're trying to create those emails.
Okay. So what does the future of Boop look like? Where do you want to go in the next 12 months?
Well, we're very excited as we continue to build out some new innovative technology. We are looking forward to launching our organizational network intelligence platform, which is an extension of what we already do, but is to really help those enterprise organizations, those nonprofit organizations leverage not only external relationships that their community outreach teams or their sales teams are doing, but also their internal relationships as well. So imagine now being able to go to an event, you connect with one person, but now your network has expanded exponentially because of that. And we're all about nurturing warm leads. So we'll be helping with those additional warm intros as well.
Okay. So as the platform grows, how do you plan to maintain a balance between automation and personalization?
This is a fun one. So, well, the biggest thing right now is making sure that all of our users are able to have control. So, we ultimately want to see ourselves as the ability to be fully automated. Like, we are your digital sales assistant. You can feel comfortable at some point letting our emails just completely send automatically on your behalf. But ultimately, we're not there yet. And I feel like a lot of the technology is still probably a couple of years out from, folks actually trusting that it's not going to hallucinate and send some craziness out to someone. So our biggest thing right now is for them to maintain control. So we draft everything. We let you know that everything is drafted, and then if you like it, love it, then just hit the send button. If you want to tweak it, that's a lot faster than conjuring that up from scratch, right? And so that's ultimately what we're doing right now is making sure that you have a preview, and then you can approve it or decline it, right?
Yeah. Are you able to track metrics to see how much modification users are doing to the messages before they go out?
Currently, we actually do have a way to track if they're modifying it because it's already drafted. So once they hit the save email button that's in our platform, then that means that they've updated something. And if they hit send, then we know that they sent it from our platform. And currently what we do is when they send it, we'll open up their default email provider and then they can send it from there. So we can track those touch points.
Okay, great. So you're able to see how many times are they having feeling like it's not quite what I want to say.
Right, exactly, exactly, because there's always room for improvement, and as we continue to get more interactions and, continue to train our model, it'll become, faster, stronger, smarter, and we'll be able to eventually, hopefully pretty soon, let it just ride on its own, but we wanna make sure that at this point that we're gathering as much data as possible so that it can be as contextually accurate as possible.
So taking that to a different direction, I'm curious your thoughts on this. So there's this meme, if you will, out there about person A has AI expand a bullet point into a long email, sends it to person B, who then uses AI to take that long email and condense it down into a single bullet point. At what point do you see the possibility that you're going to have AIs emailing each other back and forth because of systems like?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely can see that happening. Well, what we're hoping is that our emails are short enough or straight to the point enough that you don't have to use another AI to bullet point it. The goal is to not be long-winded and to get straight to the point when it comes to our emails. But I feel like I've seen that where if you send an email and then it's come back, I'm actually pretty sure I've experienced that where it's just like, this is interesting. Hope that we don't go that route where it's just AIs emailing each other back because then that takes us out of the loop and it makes everything less human. And the goal is for us to still use our brain power, our human tendencies and everything and just pair it and collaborate with technology to continue to make us more human. Because I believe once we just have tech talking to tech, then we've lost it all at that point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just interesting little thought experiment, I suppose, because that does feel like a direction that we're going, and we don't want to remove the human element
Yeah, we
completely.
don't want to be rendered useless.
Yeah, exactly. So, as a startup founder, what aspect of scaling the startup do you think isn't talked about enough, especially right now in this environment?
I would say what's not talked about enough is really just like how difficult it is. A lot of times people they see me in the press, they see me in the news and things like that, and they're like, "Oh, she's got it all, it's good, she's fine." We'll just let her do her thing. But really what it takes to build this behind the scenes and how to manage people in interpersonal relationships, it's a lot. And when it comes to scaling, you really have to start thinking about at that next level and those decisions that you have to make that, can make or break things, right? We're at a point where we're scaling and I'm having to think about who are these additional folks that I'm bringing on my team that are no longer my friends or mentors or things like that. They're going to be complete strangers, right? And having to take that next level of trust so that we can grow. Usually that means building a larger team and then having more trust that you have to put into that. But that doesn't come without its downfalls too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, that's the case with pretty much any business, right? Is once you branch out beyond your close network and you start really growing, you take a leap of faith on some people, and it's not always going to be the perfect fit.
Yes, for sure. We've been through it one time before, but we're very positive about this next step in our journey.
Now, did you raise any funds for this company?
This company has been bootstrapped to date. We do have a few small check angel investors that recently came on board with us, which we're very thankful for. And we are currently raising a $3 million pre-seed. So this will help us with that exponential growth.
How is the fundraising environment right now that you're finding? Are you actively raising?
Yes, we're actively raising, and I would say that it's interesting, right? And it's one of those things where we're navigating having this growth, but it may not be enough for investor A, or traction looks a little different for investor B. So it's really just coming down to navigating that. So we're strictly looking for angel investors that are really deep into their early stage startup vibe and get it. So even former founders is what we're looking at too, that see the vision, they get it, and are ready to hop on board before we actually go to venture capital.
Very cool. Well, that's all I've got for you. I think this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes, definitely. So I'm Martika Brianne Jones. That's on LinkedIn. If you want to follow our company, our website is www.boop.ai, and our social handles are the Boop AI.
Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps us with the algorithms. And as always, keep pitching, keep building, and keep scaling.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitch, Build, Scale. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.